This flow is to illustrate the receiving process. In this scenario, I'm going to create a purchase order requisition for 200 promotional mugs, receive those, inspect and find that a couple of those were damaged in transit, and we're going to do an automatic return back to the vendor, and then see how we handle the payment or the invoicing piece in accounts payable. So a requisition's been entered here. You see, it's requisition 203926. We're ordering 200 coffee mugs at a price of $5 a piece, so total amount of $1,000. And if we roll down, you can see that I've got the option to enter in the charge account that I want this to go to. So you could have a default based on your cost center. You can override that. So click the little button and you could override. So I could code this to another department or a division or another event, such as, a marketing code. And you could also use a project number that might be related to a specific marketing campaign. Okay. All right. Once the requisition was submitted, in this scenario, it was automatically approved, and the system automatically assigned a purchase order number to it. So PO is assigned to the rec. And once those goods show up, I'm going to go ahead and do a receipt. So what you're looking at here are all the open lines that are awaiting receipt. And when I find my coffee mugs here, I'm going to grab that row. I'm going to click to receive them in, and it defaults in the quantity for me. For this scenario, we're just going to receive them all. So all 200 are going to come in. And the system it's building that audit trail. So I've got a confirmation and a receipt number tied to that. Okay. The purchase order line is now closed. You can see that the status has changed as soon as that receipt transaction was recorded. So upon inspection, so we were all excited for our marketing campaign, and we're going to rip into the box. We open it up and we find a couple of those have been damaged. So we're going to go back to that original receipt transaction, and we're going to create an automated return back to the vendor from that document. So we're going to open up our receiving transactions and click on the return receipt. That's the receipt transaction that we brought those in on. So I'm going to open that up. Here's the documentation, right? Here's the purchase order number, the quantity that we had received in, and I'm going to return a portion of those. So I'm going to send back 30, and I get to give it a reason code why we're sending these back, right? They're damaged. So got that audit trail. So go ahead and submit that. And you've got a confirmation again. So every transaction is being recorded. Who did it? What time? What was the transaction? Okay. And you can see now it leaves me an open, quantity here of 170. So the 200 minus the 30 that we sent back. All right. So now we're in accounts payable, and we've received an invoice. Perhaps the box is still in transit on its way back to the supplier. They don't even know that we're returning some of the quantity. So what we're going to do now is we're going to we're going to record an invoice against it and create an adjusted payment. So we come into the invoicing, and I'm going to create an invoice. And the first thing I'll do is look for that purchase order that we're going to create the invoice against, right? So I pop in the PO number, it finds it for me, and it's going to default in a bunch of the required information. What I need to tell it is how much I'm going to pay on this, okay, and give it the invoice number. So I took the PO number and I typed INV in front of it just to tie those two together. And the next step is to match the invoice line. So I've got my little button here that I'm going to click go, and it's going to go out and grab that purchase order information for that line, bringing it automatically, right? So I can see here, what's happened with this PO line number 1, how much was ordered, what did we actually receive, what are the payment terms, etc. Now I want to adjust the amount that's going to be paid. So when I click the little match box here, it makes these fields editable. So now I can go in and change the quantity I'm going to match against from 200 to the 170. And I'll leave everything else the same. I'm going to apply that amount to the invoice. Okay. And when I save and close, I now have the invoice in the system ready for payment. It's got my dates. It's got the amount it's applied the tax for me. And so the next step would be to either, create the check to the supplier as part of a check run, or I could do the automatic electronic remittance to their bank account.